Broadcasting. People should be coming online. Here they are. There's the attendees are coming. Okay. We should have somewhere in the neighborhood of 112 people that are participating.
Excellent.
So we'll let that get up there. I think right now all of our attendees can hear you and I talking.
Excellent.
And see us. So welcome everybody as you're coming in. I see about 38 right now. We'll give it just a couple of minutes before we get started. I'll give some logistical directions too. As people are coming in too, there's a Q&A button. If you want to submit questions, please put those in the Q&A. The chat box, you can put your questions in there, but sometimes they get lost. If you want to make sure we can see them, put them in the Q&A box. Good morning, Rob. Nice to see you, or at least to see your name. A few more coming in, a little bit slow. See a lot of familiar names in the list today. All right. A couple more seconds here. We're up to about 47 participants. Stacy, can you see that number, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can.
It's my coffee chat backwards, by the way. Okay.
That's right.
It's right. It's backwards to me, so it's right to you guys, I see. We have one phone-in caller listening in. Not sure how that works, but they're there. So today, as people are still coming in, we are, as you can see, it's just myself and Stacy. Stacy, Executive Director of Communications for the School Corporation. Good morning, Stacy. You'll get to chime in a lot today. And of course, myself, I'm honored to serve all of you as your superintendent for the school district. We've been working hard at things, as you can imagine. And I know you have a lot of questions. So again, if you would use the Q&A button on your system and put in the questions there, that'll help generate our conversation. Thank you, Brad. Brad put a question in for us. Excellent. And we'll get the conversation going. Here in just a second, I just wanted to give a few more people a minute to get in here. We are recording this, and Stacy, can you remind us, what do we do after we record this and all? Where will we post it and all of that?
We will add it to the Coffee Chat webpage on our district website. So it's just centergrove.k12.in.us/coffee chat. And there's a link. We also included last time the Q&A because we went through and answered some of those questions. So the Q&A transcript was in there as well as the video.
Yes. Yes, so if for some reason you can't stay through the whole time and you have to jump off and do something else, feel free to get to our website and you'll be able to, in probably a few days, it takes us a day or two to kind of get it all put together. I say it takes us, I have nothing to do with it. It takes Stacy a few days to put it all together and get it up on.
Depends on how long it takes until they send it to you, so.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to jump in and I'll just go one more time through some logistics. A few more people have come on board, and then I'll jump into the questions. And Stacy, we may ask folks if they would mind popping in as well to join in the conversation. So if we do, I'll pull them in. If you would like and don't mind using your video, we'll do your video. If you just want to do your voice and not video, that's fine too.
Do you want them to
So
type their question first so you know they have a question and then you can bring them in? Is that what you're
yeah,
thinking?
that's probably a good idea, because then, for example, Brad, we see you, we can bring you in. So let's see where Brad is on my list here. Brad, if you're interested in popping in physically, we'd be happy to do that. So let's see. Oh, I see Brad here. Okay, I really don't even know how to ask Brad particularly. I think I can allow him to talk. So we could do that. Here we are. Brad, can you hear us?
I'm on the line. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yeah,
Awesome.
great.
I can't figure out my video, so wasn't too
No
sure.
worries. You know what? That's an awesome picture anyway. So you know what? Gotta go with that. I wish I looked that good. Well, why don't you just go ahead and ask your question for us, and then we'll kind of talk
Sure thing.
about that.
Yeah, so good morning, everybody, and thanks for having the coffee chat. This is the first one I've ever attended, so appreciate the time. My question is just around probably what's on a lot of people's minds, and with the pandemic and so on and so forth, but looking into the future of what contingency plans might look like if we have to start the fall school year online instead of face-to-face. So my question was just around that.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And you know what? That is something we are working on actually today and tomorrow. And we have been, but we have what we call our thematic goals at the executive level with the team. That it's our rallying cry, if you will. It's the things that we're working on that are most important. And so it's like it's our joint goal for the entire corporation, while every individual department, obviously has things they have to focus on and so forth. What we do is we pull together a joint goal that we realize this is the most important thing that we have to accomplish, and in a short amount of time sometimes. So right now, what we are doing is focusing on exactly your question. And we have 3 areas that we're looking at for plans. First of all, we want to end our school year as top-notch as we can. And so that's addressing, all of the issues like graduation and other events like prom and some of the other school events, and putting a plan in place to bring those things to closure. But also to things like, when can I get in and get my stuff, and things like that. So we're working on a plan for all of that, as well as what can we do for the summer school remediation. What can we do to provide students something over the summer? So we're putting that together. As we have some standard things that we already do, so we're putting some plans together on that. And then finally, our contingency plans for next school year. We're dealing with a couple of issues that we have considered that could happen next year. So there's a good possibility of having 5 alternative plans for the start of school year next year. One might be that we're told we can't start until after Labor Day. So if that's the case, we're going to put together a plan that might put us in that position of starting after Labor Day, and then having somewhere, having to adjust our calendar, obviously, which might mean that, maybe we reduce, the breaks down so that we can get the 180 days in a reasonable amount of time, and not go, way late into June. The other thing we're looking at is, what if we have to start virtually? So we've been collecting a lot of data on how it's going right now, and making adjustments in our plans for next year to have a more robust e-learning system. We also know there are a number of groups of students who are not all getting their needs met via e-learning. So we're trying to come up with other alternatives for that, whether it's individuals without internet connection or students with special needs who have more demanding needs. So we're putting some plans in place and trying to come up with some ideas of how we can meet their needs virtually or remotely as well. What we're working on those, and I don't have an exact plan in place yet. Our goal is to have those plans ready to present to the board next month so that they can kind of bless those things and we can have them launched out over time. We'll be probably asking the community for questions of what's working well, what's not working well, what do you need from the school district, what can we provide. So how is that helping you, Brad, in my answer? Because I know I'm not giving you a lot of definitive answers, but we are working on those things. So hopefully these are helpful. And what other thoughts around your question?
Yeah, definitely helpful, and thank you for that. So my wife actually is a teacher in the system. So she's an instructional coach, and I've seen the impact of virtual teaching, and I happen to I work in higher education, and online learning has been a part of that for a long time. So I'm probably more curious around the online learning piece, if that's the direction that you got to go, because I think the technology's out there and the systems are out there to implement it well. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's just it's one of those things where we just dived into this, didn't we? I mean, it's just we had been working on a lot of these ideas for some time, but we've had to just jump in to the whole system, full-fledged. And I think it's where it's going pretty well for most of our students at the secondary level, even in middle school for the most part. It is a real struggle for our elementary. And I can understand that. I can, can't even imagine what it's going to be like for a kindergartner if we have to start virtually next year. That just stresses me out. So we're thinking about that as well. So that's a tough one. It's one thing to jump into a virtual learning after you've spent some time with kids and, being able to, kind of go off and be virtual, but you've had this physical relationship for a little while, that helps. But to just kind of jump in next year, completely cold and into it, we're really trying to figure out how we can make the best of that if we go that route. That is obviously our least desired. But we also believe too that there's a possibility that we need to have a more robust e-learning program together for folks that don't want to come back to school too. So we need to be ready for that as well. So we're working on some ideas on that. So thank you, Brad. Appreciate you asking that question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Let's see. We have another question. Stacy, you want to?
Sure. Angie Teed had a question. Do you want to bring her in?
Sure. Yeah. Can you do that, and do I move him?
Yep. I think you remove.
Remove. Okay. Hopefully I don't disconnect him. Oh, you did it.
Yep.
Okay. There you go. All right. And then Angie, there you are. Okay. I'm going to bring Angie in. Angie, are you there?
Hello. Yes. I'm here.
Great. Okay. Okay. Go ahead, and Angie, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. And remind me, you've got some still little ones, right?
I do. I have a middle schooler in 6th grade, and then I've got 2 at Walnut Grove, a 4th grader and a kindergartner.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I didn't realize you had
and
one.
then one at home still.
One at home. All right.
But you mentioned that you were seeing how e-learning was going, and I was just wondering if you were encouraging teachers to do evaluations like have parents fill out something to say how it's going, or how we could give our input on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we're doing, we wanted to give a little bit of time before we asked parents for feedback. We've been asking our teachers, we started out asking our teachers daily and just realized that was probably a little much. So we've moved it, I believe, to once a week to get the feedback from the teachers. So we're planning on doing a parent survey, I think in what was it, Stacy, in about another week?
Right.
Right.
Great.
Yeah. So we wanted parents to be able to get a lot of experience and before and hopefully work out some bugs with some teachers and if there's any technical issues and so forth. So you'll probably be seeing a survey here, I think next week, at the end of next week, that will have multiple questions, probably also too. There might even be like just a fill-in answer or question for you to just kind of open-ended. So does that help? We didn't boot Angie out yet, did we? Oh, there she is. You there?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, let's go to another question. Okay, the person says, I don't need to ask my question, I need to leave. Oh, so the question is, please know from parent that e-learning can't substitute for personal instruction.
That's my coffee chat. They unmuted.
Oops, sorry. I'm gonna have to remove Angie there. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, do you see Laura's question?
Yeah, sorry.
She was saying, it sounds like she said it's not going well for her students in high school.
Yes, okay.
So obviously there's, as parents know very well, there's a lot more to school than just the learning part. There's this social interaction and all of that support that they get from their teachers and their friends and everyone else.
Yeah.
So do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And that is so hard in this environment to replicate some of that support. I know our counselors are available and are working to provide some of that, but I don't know if I have a really good answer. It's unfortunate having two high schoolers at home myself. I know that it's lacking quite a bit of that social interaction and really having good connection with each other. I think I've witnessed a little bit of what my kids are doing, whether they're using Zoom and other social or other media type platforms to connect, whether it's Google Hangout or Zoom or FaceTime or whatever they're connecting with to try and connect with one another a little bit. I know some of the high school teachers have been doing Zooms with their kids to just have a conversation. Shout out to Mr. Lawson. I know he does that. He's offered that to his students so that they can talk and ask questions about what's coming up.
She did have a little bit of a clarification. I think she wants to talk about the rigor of it, not necessarily, you can obviously speak to that. We have kids on all different levels as far as internet access and functionality with the e-learning. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Yeah,
absolutely. The rigor is definitely suffering. I won't deny that. It's a challenge. Some of our teachers are really putting out there as much as they can. One of the things jumping into this that we wanted to ensure, because it's so, so new for everyone, was that we were holding everyone harmless coming out of the March grading period. And so what we did with a lot of our kids, or with everyone, is basically kind of froze them there at their March grade And then we then went to what do I want to say? You can get better, but you're not going to decline. And it's been a challenge in just doing that alone. And maybe it'd be helpful too if Mr. Lawson would be willing to jump in. I see he's out there. Maybe he could talk a little bit to that academic rigor piece. We can ask him. Hopefully I know he's like me. He's all set up in his dining room, I think he said, with his, oh, there we go.
Can you hear me, Dr. Arkanoff?
I can.
I am going to leave the David Lawson up because there's no way I'm turning on my video right now. Okay, so
That's fine.
Sorry about that. Thanks for the shout out, by the way. I do appreciate it. So, but can you ask me again what you were talking about? What exactly did you want me to comment on? Because I was writing something as you were talking, and I think I missed part of it.
Well, let's see. Laura this is Laura's question, am I right? Yeah, she also said we could unmute her so we could explain her question a little bit more. Maybe we should do that so that we just make sure we get a clarity on her question. So here we go.
Yep,
right,
she
Laura.
can talk now. Laura, can you hear us?
Laura.
She may have herself muted.
Yeah.
I think she's muted.
It's tricky because if one of us try to unmute her at the same time she tries to unmute herself, we end up muting her. I'll see if that worked.
Laura, you should be able to talk now.
Hi, are you there?
Yeah, there you go, Laura.
I think that the biggest question I had with the seniors or with the high school students was we're having I already have a child who suffers from a lot of depression and anxiety, and how we can try to do something to get those kids doing something. I have a hard time getting her out of her room. If she's not eating dinner with us, she is in her room doing, I don't know what she's doing, but she basically is very, you could just see it's definitely taken a toll in missing all the senior activities. I know they did snuff the prom video, but how to maybe directive ways on how we can help bring them out and back into the family.
That is a great question. And it's a challenge for myself at home. So I have the two, one's a senior. So, a couple of things that's been, I would say more of a parenting tactic, if you will, has been that I've just required time out and offline. And part of that's by either, securing the device, propping the bedroom door open and saying, come on out. You need to come out and see the light, vampire. I've done that with both of mine a couple of times. So I think that piece, as a parent, trying to push that out there, getting them, unfortunately, there's been a real challenge for them to connect other than virtually. So if there's opportunities where they can social distance and maybe connect, that's always an option. We've had one friend over at a time that's out on the driveway, and they've sat, in the backyard, and they've sat far apart just to kind of help them connect a little bit. That's just us. I'm not recommending that, but that's a tactic we've taken. So some form of interaction like that. But until we've got a lift on a stay-at-home order from the school district, we're really unable to kind of provide other opportunities.
So that was actually a different Laura with a very good question. So I'm gonna unmute the correct Laura. Laura, you should be able to talk now.
Okay, I thought it was different.
I'm trying to speak, but I cannot seem to speak. Can anybody hear me?
We got
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so my question is about academic performance. It wasn't about the social setting. That's just what we have to deal with here. So academic subjects in high school, like math, science, and discussion classes, like, you know, the social sciences and English, they simply don't function well with e-learning and isolation. So my student is not able to ask questions when things come up and point at stuff in math and science, which is an exceptionally helpful way of figuring out what you're talking about. And we're seeing that his performance is suffering. And I understand that you've frozen grades, but we weren't exactly going into this in a good situation. So freezing that grade isn't good. We were hoping to improve this 9 weeks, not hold where we were this 9 weeks. So really, this is more of a comment. I want you to know that it might be going well in terms of getting things done, but whether we're getting things done that are truly academically useful, and then also whether or not the student is actually able to learn the material so that they can proceed, you know, to the next course is of great concern to me.
Yeah, and that is an excellent point. And David, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I would say, Mrs. Hilden, yes. I won't speak for all teachers, but I know I you know, part of our teachers association, and I talk with a lot of teachers, and we talk frequently with the administration. This has been just a hurricane of learning for everybody. And I would agree completely that one of our concerns is that we see real learning and real growth and real preparation. And right now, I think one of the things I think we've done well is we've tried to put the mental health aspect of it, you know, at the front of our decision making. We didn't want to raise anxiety. We didn't want to. We don't know what's going on in homes. We don't know what's going on with kids. So I know, you know, initially we had some parent feedback that the work was a lot, that it was kind of overwhelming. And I know we kind of backed off from that because, like I said, we want to consider, you know, the whole child and not just the academic performance, but we do have to strike that balance between making sure that everybody can do the work that's going on and that they glean something useful from it. But I can assure you we have the same kind of concerns. This happened so quickly, and teachers spent, you know, a good part of their spring break, I think, getting ready for e-learning. And we sort of experienced this J curve of implementing face-to-face teaching online. So I know that Canvas offers a lot of different options in terms of discussion, and Zoom. I mean, we're grateful that they opened up their, you know, their technology to us. Even Google has opened up, you know, technology that makes teaching a little more accessible online. So I know the teachers share those concerns as well, but you know, in this fast-paced series of changes, we are doing the best we can, and so I appreciate that feedback. But I can assure you, teachers have the exact same concerns. We're trying to, you know, learn how to address those concerns and make a meaningful move into the next school year.
Sorry, I was muted.
That's right.
I was coughing. I didn't want to cough in your ear. But that was really well put, David. And there's more, and there's also some more thought from my perspective, David, and you can kind of, you know, share. And I know you weren't planning on talking this morning, but, you know.
That's okay.
Hey, that's what you get
I'm
for
a teacher.
signing
We think on our feet, right?
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. But I know as a parent too, and kind of watching what my kids are going through, that we, as you kind of said, we have teachers at all different comfort levels in doing this. And I've witnessed some really good interaction. Someone told me my microphone is rubbing, sorry. I've saw some really good interaction with some of our teachers in providing, I think, some of what Laura was asking for, and that is just kind of whether it's face-to-face time through Zoom, or they've used some interactive videos. They've guided them to some resources like Khan Academy or other opportunities online. I've seen that done several times over the last few days of watching how things are going. Have you got any thoughts on that, David, as what you've been doing yourself or what you know other teachers are trying to do to kind of bridge that gap of lack of physical connection?
The teachers that I work with and talk to on almost a daily basis, we're utilizing a lot of Zoom, utilizing some Google Meets. I know that I teach AP. There are a lot of resources out there for AP preparation, but the things that I've used. Just as an example, my own experience when I ask students just for a social check-in, they have the option of producing a Flipgrid video or writing me a personal note and submitting it into an assignment in Canvas just to check in, or maybe even posting to a discussion thread. I know those are things that teachers are using in other departments as well. So, we are learning of what technology is out there too, and I think that's one of the things that was most surprising is what kind of world of technology we had access to that we're just kind of now discovering in a scramble to put things together. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
it did. I know I saw it was a few days ago that one of the teachers was working with the class and had, I believe it was Zoom open. They can simultaneously share screens in Zoom, and they were actually doing math lessons where the teacher would start the whiteboard and the student could then like basically walk up to the whiteboard and finish the math problem or something like that. Really cool. So it was really a neat way of doing So there was some opportunities that way. One of the things that just popped into my head in Laura's question when she was asking, can you talk a little bit, David, about the grading? Because I think, while we froze the grades, we didn't actually freeze it. I mean, they can be moved up. Is that right?
I mean, that's correct. Absolutely. Yes. And so while the students rather are kind of held harmless, the actual letter grade is not going to be lower than the third 9 weeks grade, and that went out in an email to parents I know at the high school. The challenge there, of course, is that Dr. McCormick has also mandated that students stay engaged, and so teachers are, I know, kind of scrambling to make contact with parents and with kids and keep them engaged, and make sure that they're doing the work as best they can in the circumstances that they have. I know a lot of teachers have mapped out in Skyward work that is going to be done, so parents can see what is coming up, and so they have some indication of what we'll be doing over the next few weeks. But yeah, the grades are being generated in that held harmless kind of way, so they won't get lower than the third 9 weeks grade. But I do understand the concern about the grade versus the learning and how we're preparing. So again, teachers are really trying to find that middle ground between not causing anxiety, not letting grades slip, and still preparing for the 2021 school year. So
I think too, and David, maybe you can speak to this as well, is there are teachers who may not be as familiar with some of those interactive online tools.
Yes.
And I mean, that the person could be a tremendous teacher in the classroom, but maybe really struggling with some of those online tools. So I think that might be the situation that Laura's student is dealing with. And obviously we need to give our teachers a little bit of grace too, because their world has been changed too. So
well, this is my opportunity, Dr. Arkanoff, to put you on the spot too and ask a question.
Absolutely.
About professional development over the summer. Obviously, if we're talking about a blended model or delaying the start or starting virtually. Nobody has a crystal ball. We don't know. But what kind of plans, even basic plans right now, do we have for providing professional development for teachers in June or July, so they are more comfortable? They do know the resources. I know there are probably conversations like that going on. Can you tell us what?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Absolutely. You. And I think one of the things too, before I answer your question, David, that I just didn't want to forget to say is that, if you are a parent and your teacher isn't quite hitting the mark, they would appreciate an email from you just saying that, and just saying, hey, my child needs X, Y, and Z, I know this opportunity or that opportunity is out there technology wise. Have you considered it? And, I think the teachers appreciate that feedback and will try to, beef up what they're doing. To that being said, and to David's question is, so one of the things that we're discussing and talking about is what are we going to do from May 15th when students are done moving forward to the end of the school year? There's a couple of thoughts out there, is that we need to probably spend some time professional development wise building our teachers up and their technology skills and based on their needs, right? Because everyone's at different levels. So how can we best build their needs? We also need to work together to figure out where the gaps are going into next year for the students coming in next year. So teachers need to get together, probably virtually, and figure out, so what did we not finish in 4th grade? Where did we not get to? So that when the 5th graders come in next year, they know, the 5th grade teachers know where to start. So there'll be a lot of conversation around that. And that's one piece of professional development. But then back to your question, David, and that is what can we do to bring, teachers up to speed, build their skill set online? And again, we'll probably need a very vast array of professional development opportunities for our teachers. So some of that might be able to get done in those few days we have before the end of the contract school year. And then we'll probably put together some additional professional development that teachers can take advantage of over the summer, like we've done in the past. And, we offer all kinds of things, and we usually reimburse our teachers for attending those events and doing.
I see Nora Hoover is on. Would you like to bring her in?
Oh, poor Nora. She was on last. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. David, did that help you, that question? Answering that? Oops.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, that did. Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks
fantastic.
for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll let you off the hook, David,
Okay.
if you want. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good day, guys.
You too. Nora, did I leave anything out on that topic?
No, I would add additionally that with e-learning stopping before the last day of school would have been, teachers are still on contract for those days, and we're already planning what needs to be done to end the year, what do we need to do in the summer, and what do we need to do to start the year next year, not knowing necessarily what that's going to be. I know, Dr. Arkanoff, you've shared very clearly that there are so many variables and we can't possibly know what August will look like, but we need to plan the best we can. We're going to do that work with the teachers, and a lot of that catch-up work. We know that a typical 4th grader is not going to have gotten through all the material they would have if they were sitting in the classroom. The amount of material and the rigor. And so we need to work to see what we have to do to help that child as a 5th grader to both catch up and to get where we would have expected them to get in 5th grade anyway. So
Yes.
That's the work our teachers are going to be tasked with, along with their administrators. And then we have both a teaching and learning director for elementary and secondary who will be working closely across all teachers to get that work done.
Yeah, that's well put. And I was looking over here too it while you were talking about that, there's a question about, is the state / the Department of Education offering assistance to school corporations with e-learning content? And that's a great question. And the state superintendent put out some really good information in her last talk on Tuesday. And Nora, did you catch some of that? Some of the things that they've put out?
Yes, she talked really specifically about some of their social emotional learning resources they have available to students. Now, they used to be things available to teachers more, and now they're focusing their efforts to make them more of an easy delivery straight to teachers than to students. So there's a lot of work there. They do have a lot of e-learning resources online to help teachers with planning regular lessons too. But they're kind of like us. They weren't in that business before. And so they are just doing their best and helping schools that maybe don't have as many resources as Center Grove. We're lucky we had already started getting ready for e-learning. Of course, not like we're doing it now. But we were able to mobilize our amazing teachers to get a lot of work done in a short time, and they're doing their best. And is it the best it would be if we'd been doing this for a while? No. But even schools who've been doing e-learning for 5, 6, 7 years, this is not what they've been doing before. They were doing 1 or 2 snow days here and there. Yeah. And so it's just very difficult to deliver this much new content to students. And I think that's where a lot of the parents they're worried that this is not, and we recognize this is not what kids would be getting in the classroom. And I have 2 kids in 6th grade. I see it every day they're on e-learning. But I also have a lot of faith in those 7th grade teachers to get my girls where they need to be, despite what they're missing right now.
Right. Right. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Nora. A couple of things, I'm looking at some of the other questions here on the side, and particularly, I think we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but announcing a particular date for graduation is one question. And this is something that I always like to kind of get some feedback on. I've got a couple of questions that I like to put out for a poll. So I have 2 questions that I'm going to put out, and we'll continue talking. So one is graduation. Which would you choose, a virtual graduation on May 31st or an in-person graduation in mid-July or early August? So you can select one of those 2. I'd like to see a kind of some response on that. And then the second question is e-learning. Please rate your experience 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 5 being excellent. So I'm going to launch the poll, and there we go. And so that'll be going, and then I'll be able to share the results when they're done. So hopefully, is everyone seeing the poll? I don't think the panelists can see the poll, but yeah, people are seeing it. They're voting. Awesome. Okay, so while people are doing that, the other question, and a lot of these questions relate to a topic that we call SEL, social emotional learning. But there are things like getting closure for students so for example, our 5th grade students, our 8th grade students, are there going to be opportunities for them to come back or do something so that they can at least see their teacher one last time? Actually, Nora and I shared some text messages just the other day about this topic. So there's a handful of ideas that we're working on to do something to provide opportunities for our students and our teachers, because this is a big emotional drain on our teachers not to be able to give those little, kindergartners a hug goodbye before they go off to 1st grade, or, our 5th graders off to middle school and so forth. So we thought about that. We've also thought about what are we going to do to help to close the gap. We're kicking around a few ideas. Nora, would you want to talk about any of those ideas right now? Hate to put you on the spot too much. I was going to say, no, I don't want to.
Well, I hate to say anything and then we don't do that, and then I feel terrible because people they're I will say I work with some amazing administrators in the teaching and learning department, and they're reaching out to their colleagues in other districts. We have a lot of connections. We meet monthly with area, Indianapolis region curriculum administrators. And so we're trying to see, you know, what were we thinking? What are other schools thinking, and getting some of that information. We've talked about maybe just dedicating a certain number of weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what we feel is necessary, to having what I would call an intercession that is that catch-up work.
Yeah.
We're getting kids where they need to be. What didn't we cover in the last grade or in the last course? Particularly in elementary, this would work well.
Yeah.
And then starting the regular 9 weeks. So we would have 4 8 weeks quarters instead of 9 week quarters. So that's one idea. And there's a couple of schools also thinking that way. But we're also keeping it open because there's some other good ideas floating out there.
Yeah.
But
And a lot of that depends on the size of the school and the school corporation and what they can manage.
Yes.
For sure.
You know, there have been thoughts, hey, let's just keep kids in the grade level they're currently in with their teacher for a while.
That was my idea.
Yeah. But then you have kindergarten teachers with 40 to 50 kids. And you have, you know, the 6th grade teachers are going to want their kids.
Right.
And they're going to want those 5th graders to matriculate up. And I think we'll just have to.
Yeah. And I don't think a lot of kids would be a fan of that. Wait, I'm not going on to middle school next year. So.
Oh, it would feel horrible.
It would feel horrible.
So, you know, we'll just have to do this work over those last days of May and then throughout the summer to prep for what we have to do in August, no matter what that looks like. And if it's virtually, we'll have to work and plan on that. And we do have grant money. We use a lot for summer work for teachers, and part of that we can use for supporting technology usage in ways that teachers need, and providing additional professional development to our teachers. And I saw a parent idea that question, how can we help our kids with virtual learning? And I think, you know, that's a great idea, that we need to have some things before school starts to help with virtual learning, especially this extended time. I don't think a snow day would be a big deal. This is different when it's extended. So I've written that idea down to share with our Connected Learning team, to how we can help parents help their students.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, you know, I'm part of that is definitely, you know, something parents are struggling with right now. Again, it's new for parents, you know, dealing with this. And I see we have 91% complete on the poll. So I'm about to shut it down. So if you haven't voted, go ahead and jump in there, please. We've been tracking some data, for example, some data on students logging in to Skyward, to Canvas. And we have seen a gradual decline in the numbers, which, you know, that's like attendance, if you will, for us, for school. And so, you know, that's something that as a parent, we need to make sure we get our kids to do that. You know, it's no different than getting them up and saying, get on the bus and go to school. So it's the same thing as saying, hey, get up and let's get you logged in and let's get you working on something. But it's hard when you're a parent and you're also working from home and you're dealing with other things, particularly if you have multiple little guys at home. It can be a real challenge. So I'm going to go ahead and shut down a few more people have decided to vote, so I'll wait a minute. So that's a tough one as well. I know setting up some suggestions and is really trying to set up a schedule for your day, a location for your kids. You know, it's hard, especially for older kids. They want to go in their room. Like one of the parents was saying, they want to go in their room and stay there and you know, do their work in their room, and you don't see them all day long. And you know, they come out like a hermit and go to the refrigerator and rate it, and then they go back in there. And you know, so really trying to set some.
I'm really glad that's not just my house, to be honest. I thought maybe that was a strange thing, but I guess not.
Well, the most aggravating thing for me is to wake up in the morning and see pretty much every dish and cup we own in the sink, you know, and I know when I went to bed, they were all clean and put away. So We quit buying ice cream, by the way, because that disappears overnight, a whole gallon of ice cream. So, and there's only 2 teenagers in my house. So really trying to set up, and you know, I'm guilty as anyone else of trying to hold your kids to that. You know, there's a lot of stress in their lives right now. Doesn't seem like it, but there is, because they've been so disrupted. And so we're really thinking about that as well. And Heather Fosnot, who is the head of our mental health and school counseling, has been working with our counselors on resources and ideas on what we can do for our kids. So one of the questions that also came up was about prom. I know the high school has done a really nice job of putting together kind of a what we call like a drive-by prom almost, right? And kids are going to be able to kind of go out and when the teachers come by, and this was all teacher driven. So I'm really proud of the high school teachers to come up with this idea and participate in this for any of the students that want to do this. So it's really a nice idea. Someone had said, you know, is there going to be a video of some sort? I don't know, but we can actually talk to the high school to see if they can put together a video. Now the question is, could you do a real prom later in the summer? And kind of shared this last time. One of our biggest concerns, and I know some school districts are still talking about doing a prom later in the summer, but our biggest concern is the fact that we might have to deal with some behavior problems that might result from coming back from a long hiatus, if you will, of social gathering and then jumping into a big social party that could result in some unintended consequences for some kids. And we don't want that to happen. So we're trying to limit down the opportunities for risky behavior, if you will. Because of that, we've really decided not to have a prom, a physical prom later, because we are just too worried about what might happen and the impact that would have on a lot of students if something was to go wrong in a prom setting. So that's definitely the issue with prom. Now, I think I've answered that one. Okay, I've got 95% on the poll. I'm going to end that, and I think I can share the results. Here we go. Okay. All right, I asked similar questions last time. Hopefully everybody's seeing the results. It looks like the majority of folks would prefer an in-person graduation. And then it looks like we're having about a moderate experience. Mrs. Hoover, can you see those results too? Wanted to make sure she.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so that's helpful data. We'll be keeping that as well. This is out of roughly 68 people, or 66 attendees, I should say, that have participated in this. So we'll save that data. I'll leave this on the screen for a little bit. I'm not sure how it shows up as a participant. I've not been a participant yet of where the poll shows up. Does it just pop up in your face, or how does it show up, Stacy? Oh, you don't see it either, do you? Okay, maybe somebody will tell us.
It comes up in the middle of your, yeah.
Oh, in the middle of your screen.
Yes, it does.
Okay, awesome. And then I guess you can choose whether to close it or not. Okay, looking through, Stacy, what other questions should I look at answering here? I see one about summer.
Right, that's what I was going to say about summer guidance. Yeah, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so the question there is just about, what's going to happen with some, programs like spring and summer programs that operate after school. But so, maybe the swimming program, they have lessons and so forth, baseball and some of the sporting programs. And of course, then we have also some of the intersession, or I shouldn't say intersession, but the summer school programs that we do, remediation and things like that. A lot of that, again, is going to depend on what the governor's orders are and what happens here in the first week or so of May. Once we get some more definitive answer on that, we'll be able provide some guidance. You know, if things are lifted and we can have some, we can meet the guidance. So like, for example, the federal level, the plan, if you look at phase 2, I believe phase 2 says groups of 50 or less can meet. Well, if that's the case, there might be some opportunities, for example, to do swim lessons, because those are small groups, you know, usually, you know, 2 to 3 to no more than 10 in a program. So they may be able to function. You know, certain sports might be able to have lessons like tennis. Tennis is huge over the summer, and there might be opportunities for them to do something if we're, you know, as a state allowed to have activities with a certain number of students or people, I should say, in attendance. So we're just hoping for better guidance, more guidance on that. I'm anticipating that we'll probably, as a state, probably follow a lot of that federal guideline, which if you saw that was put out a while back, you can kind of pull up that information and see. Phase 2 is the piece I'm hoping we get to sooner than later, so that we can provide some activities there. What other questions? Did that, I think that answered that question.
There are just some different ideas about splitting class sizes up and that kind of thing. Just lots of different options, which I'm sure will be discussed as we're looking into contingency plans for the start of the school year.
Yeah, so, you know, going back to that, as we're talking about those contingency plans, yesterday or the day before, I'm sorry, day before I attended, just like all of you, I'm sure your days are blending from one to another, but I attended a virtual meeting just like this one, with about 200 plus superintendents from across the country. Got some really interesting ideas of how people are thinking about coming back to school, and they're looking at all kinds of different ways of reducing down the populations in their schools, maybe going to, I think like someone had suggested here, going to alternative days and half the group coming one day and half the group coming another, or trying ways to lower class sizes and so forth. So we're definitely looking at all of those things and talking with folks from all over the country to try and get as many ideas as we can on what to do. A lot of the decisions we make are local. We'll definitely get those approved by our school board, or at least blessed by the school board, but the biggest impact that the state has will be mostly whether or not we can even meet. And they may set some basic parameters, but how we choose to meet those parameters will be up to us locally. So if they say we can come back in to school and there's maybe a limit on how many people can be in a location at a time, then we'll develop that contingency plan around those parameters. So that's a lot of what we're working on the next few days to try and plan. It's a little exhausting because we're planning for a lot of what if scenarios, and trying to have all of those different plans together, be ready to launch one of those plans, knowing that we'll probably have to tighten it up once we have all the parameters in place. But those are some of the things that we're working on. What's another question here, Stacy? Quite a few. I see
A lot of comments about prom and graduation, which I think you've addressed a little bit as well.
So
and also putting summer school online and other opportunities like that online over the summer, which will be a consideration.
Yeah, definitely something we're thinking about. Must be 9 o'clock. My little robot started up. Apologize. Yeah, I would say back to graduation for a moment. You know, we're getting ready to hit that pretty heavily here on talking about and trying to come up with the best decision for everyone for the graduation ceremony. I will say this: whatever we come up with, we'll be sure to put together something that we can accommodate both those folks that don't want to come physically. I know our team is working on a virtual concept, if you will.
Contingency.
Contingency, and that could be embedded into a live opportunity as well. So we want to make sure that we can try to accommodate everyone as much as possible. One of the things too is we talk about closure, and graduation is just a good example of the big closure, if you will, for folks. And the thing that's something to consider when we talk about closure is, did it bring closure to me? Is it something that's going to help me feel as if something's ended? So really trying to work that in to the whole process is something that we're continually discussing as we go into our conversations. Well, what is most likely going to bring our children and our parents closure here? And if it doesn't feel like closure to you, then it didn't work. And we're just trying to put together the best plan we can for that issue. And, you know, while we have graduation to think about for our high school seniors, and you know, all the work, and hats off to our high school team yesterday who worked with Brad Long and his team from Jostens to hand out cap and gowns. You know, we did the drive-through there and we got those cap and gowns, which is great. Hopefully all of you with seniors took them home and took some pictures and had some fun with it. You got your announcements and so forth. You know, of course, there were some opportunities too, if you hadn't purchased a yearbook, to get the yearbook. I think now more than ever that yearbook's going to be really important to your child. So getting yearbooks has also been, I think, extended to get that out. Also, hats off to our technology team. They distributed over, I don't know, 400 plus devices in one day, in just a few hours. So you know, a lot of work going on there. But then, you know, there's other events. Our kindergarten usually does a little graduation. Our fifth grade does usually a little ceremony of some sort, and those things aren't going to happen. So talking about what can we do to make those things happen, or at least do something similar. Now, a lot of school districts, and I say a lot, are still talking about, they have some tentative dates out there. I've been in contact with probably about 40 some odd school districts through my different networks. And I know, you know, there's school districts that put out like July 18th as a date, or August 8th as a date for graduation. Those are some things that we did not want to do that until we had a little more data, a little more confirmation, because what we didn't want to do is pick a date like July 18th, for example. I know that's a number of school districts are doing that, and then not be able to then have to kick it down the road another, you know, 3 or 4 weeks. So we're still working on that. I think I shared last coffee chat. We really are trying to hit the mark and make a decision that first week in May, based on what the governor just recently said. We'll probably try to get a decision out to you right after his decision in that early May. So that'll be probably the first week or so in May. And I know a lot of other, like we said, a lot of other school districts are planning the same way. They have put out some tentative dates. We're just not quite ready to put those out yet. We're too concerned about being too tentative. So it's, you know, if it's too tentative, it's almost not even worth putting out there. So any other questions? I know we're over time, so I want to respect everybody's time.
There was a question about graduating, and if they're still going to get the governor's work certificate or the honors diploma and things like that since we've moved to e-learning. Do you want to answer that one quickly?
Sure. So yes, all of those different certificates, recognitions will all still be issued out, and students will still be afforded all the recognition that comes with that. There's things like honors diplomas. They'll still have their, an honors diploma and the seal that's on the diploma. There's the cords and so forth. Those different cords that you wear at graduation, all of those things will still be issued out. They may have to come via mail, but there'll be a lot of those things that will still be handed out. Did that answer that, I think? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then someone else was also asking about grades being frozen, and what does that really mean? Do you want to?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Basically, what that really means is they can't go any lower than what they have. So if they have a B right now,
unless they decide to just not do any work.
Well, right. Yeah. If they
so it's not like if they just decide not to do anything, they can still drop.
Yes, you are correct. So if they fail to attend, if they fail to participate, then their grade will drop. But if they participate, if they give it their best effort, no matter what their grade is on their assignment, they'll still, their grade will not drop below whatever it is now. And it could go up, and that's the most important thing. So they'll be able to, so we call it kind of hold harmless and in that respect. Okay. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much. We've been planning these every 2 weeks. So what would that be next? Our next session would be in 2 weeks. Stacy, you can look at a calendar while Stacy's doing that. I will say that we'll put this out, and the more questions you can get for us ahead of time, the better, because what we do with those questions is kind of decide who really needs to be in this coffee chat besides myself, to give us a more in-depth answer to a lot of your questions. When would that date be, Stacey?
May 7th.
So May 7th. Hopefully we'll have a lot more feedback from the governor by then, and be able to give you some answers to some of those real burning questions that we all have. So with that, I just want to thank you all for being with us this morning. And you can reach out to us. What's the email address, Stacey? We want them.
They can just send it to communications@centergrove.k12.in.us. And there's a lot of information that we're updating as we get questions and answers in on our website. If you go to centergrove.k12.in.us, there's a little banner at the top of the screen that has a click here for information, and it takes you to a website. There's a full website built out for the district information, and then there's a separate one for the high school as well. So you can get to all of that through the icons. There's information about food assistance, Wi-Fi assistance, all of those different kinds of things that you can find on there. And we're trying to update that as we get more information and put that out to parents.
Yeah, so I kind of brought that up on the screen as a last bit to show you that if you do there, you probably get this alert that pops up. And then you can actually, in the alert, can click on the details and get to the information that Stacy's put together about stopping the spread. There's also the information on...
just scroll down and...
Yeah. The different information here.
Yeah, if you go back to that page that you were on, there's a link in the banner up there. There you go. Just keep scrolling down. There's a ton of information. So links to e-learning, the previous coffee chat, all of that information that was in one of our last communications. There's even, I linked those at the very bottom. There's a file library with the information from the president about opening up the nation. You can see that.
That's what I was referring to earlier. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that document. So there's a lot there for you to jump in and look at. So with that, we'll go ahead and end the chat. Thank you all very much. And please let us know your thoughts. Thank you. Have a great day and stay healthy.